Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 333 of the Board Game Barrage podcast. We are your three favorite tanks, all three of us here today. Kellen, number 3, start us off in reverse order.
Wait, what number 3 of what?
3, 2, 1, Kellen. Just roll with it.
I'm
Kellen.
3. Triple crossover. Triple crossover.
Well, my game has the word 3 in it, in the title. You guys, no, I'm not 3. I'm 1.
Wow.
I'm 1.
Wow.
Okay,
number 1, Kellen, red tank. Hello. Number 3,
yes.
Mark. We're going to go 1, 3,
Yes.
2.
Mark can be 3.
Hello.
I accept.
What a perfect way to
Hello.
honor 333 by going 3-1-2 or whatever you just said.
3-3-1. Yeah, 3-1-2. That's exactly it. That's just maths.
Perfect. Yes.
Okay, hello everyone. This week on the show, we are going to be talking about the Golden Geek Awards. Nothing to do with number 3, unfortunately. But the Golden Geek Award nominees are up, and we're going to be talking about our thoughts of who we think should win.
There are 3 Golden Geek winners on this podcast, so there's 3 there.
That is true. There we go. There's the 3 connection right there. So that's coming up later in the episode. But before we get there, we are going to be talking about Einfach Genial 3D.
Am I going to have to beep that out?
And...
Yeah, that's true. That's
Sounds
my
like
only joke about this game, Mark. I feel like you guys, you two, Nealon, you texted Mark this morning. You're like, hey, I'm going to do a 3-bit, so come up with jokes. So now I'm the one who's just
Mark
like...
just pre-wrote all
Yeah, I'm like looking left and right. You guys have like spent an hour cooking these up, huh?
Uh-huh. And I'm going to be talking about Gazebo by Wing Games.
God.
Mark is going to be talking to us about Stalk Exchange, or Stock Exchange, which I'm guessing is... I feel like I'm pronouncing that in a way that doesn't make the joke work, but there we go.
As in a stalker?
As in a stalker, yeah.
And that would be Nealon closest among us.
Yes, exactly. The most stalkery of the 3 of us, apparently.
Confirmed.
Let's start with Kellen.
All right. So I have been hearing throughout the land that one of my favorite games by the only true and living Dr. Rainer Knizia, Ingenious, which many people disagree with me as one of his greatest games, had a new version that you could only get if you imported it from across the oceans. And that game is called Einfach Genial 3D. And don't bleep me, Mark, like you said. Einfach Genial 3D. Or in other words, Ingenious 3D.
But wait, are the other Ingenious games called Einfach Genial? Did I just not know this whole time?
I think they are.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Yes. A.K.A. Einfach Genial, a.k.a. Ingenious. It's true. If we had known that they were called that, Ingenious, we would probably have been referring to it as that the whole time. Right? Like, let's just be honest with each other.
For sure.
So, Ingenious is a tile-laying game where you are almost playing sort of a Scrabble-ish type game with hexes, but you are just sort of matching colors. So you're not spelling words, you're just sort of matching circles to circles, and then you're scoring all along the blue circle track. And the way that the game works is that your score is actually the lowest color that you score. So you're scoring independently for red, purple, all the different colors. But the more a color sort of blossoms on the board, the more likely everyone is to be really high in that score category. And so it almost doesn't matter which is your highest. It only matters which is your lowest. So one of the things that I love about Ingenious is your ability to just completely block the ever-loving out of a color, because once Nealon and I have noticed that Mark is only at 2 points in green, we could basically assure a victory, or at least we can assure that Mark will lose the game if we just block out any green spots as soon as he'll keep trying, and then we'll all start laughing, because then we'll just block them again and there'll be no green and Mark will lose the game. That is the beauty of Ingenious. Now, over the years, Rainer has iterated on this in a couple of different ways. There's a game that is not hexagonal but is sort of more domino-like called Axio, which I have and don't know that I think it's better than the other. There is Axia Rhoda, which also changed the shapes that you're playing with, but sort of the same scoring is happening. And here we get to Einfach Genial 3D, okay? And maybe it takes a math wizard to understand this. Nealon, what do you think you do in Einfach Genial 3D versus the other one?
I think that there's a third dimension, and the tiles go up.
Okay. Is that actually consistent with 3D? Like just literally stacking something on top? There is more dimensionality to it, but is it the third dimension?
Yeah, no, I think for sure. Because like a board is 2D, right? Like you're spreading out either vertically or horizontally, and then you go up for the third dimension.
But if you can't go down, is it 3D?
I think it's still fine. Yeah, totally. Yeah, definitely.
And then how would we get to 4D?
We add a time element, and we play multiple games today, tomorrow, and yesterday, and we have our score be some function of that.
Nealon, are you claiming that the tiles in Ingenious are flat planes with no depth? Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm claiming. That's exactly what I'm claiming, yeah. It's very hard to pick them up. They get stuck to the board really, really easily.
These two Mensa people are making jokes that only they understand, but don't listen to them, listeners. Just listen to me. And so, as Nealon successfully predicted, because he is a math wizard, you can stack tiles on top of other tiles in Einfach Genial 3D, which allows you to keep the board a little bit more open into the late game in terms of which colors are available. Now, there is something very, 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 very clever. Lots of varies. Actually, I should have done 3, right? Very, very, very. 3 clever thing about how the tiles interlock, which is the rule that you can't put a tile. These are 2 hexes connected together, and you cannot stack them directly on top of one another. So that's the only rule, is that when you're sort of stacking in 3D, you must have it connect to 2 different pieces. But the game actually makes it super easy to follow that rule because you physically cannot stack it directly on top of itself, which I think is a really smart bit of engineering. Is engineering what we could call this, Nealon?
Sure, yeah.
Math wizard?
You're asking me, but yes, let's go with that.
Oh, Mark's not capable of this sort of sophisticated analysis. But what ends up happening is that you get things that get to the 3rd, 4th level, and you actually start blocking out a lot of spots that you don't realize are blocked because some are on level 2, some are on level 3, but there's only 2 spots available, and those are the same tile, and then you can't place in that spot. But ultimately, to me, it makes the end game a little bit more puzzly and a little bit less mean. Both things which I hate. But to be clear, people love this. People are like, oh my God, I could never imagine Ingenious without this. And here I am sort of just going, I don't understand how this is better beyond maybe being a little puzzlier. And all I will say to you, listeners, is, do you know what Upwards is? Of course you don't, because you play Scrabble.
I think that's a really interesting take, actually, because I think you're right. It's hard to know without really diving into the maths of it, for lack of a better word, of like where it adds and where it takes away friction. The board is smaller, right? So it constrains you and it forces you to go up. So like you can't do as much clever blocking because you can't just block things off in 2 dimensions, quite literally, but it does constrain you in terms of forcing you to go up. So it forces you to engage with that like puzzly element, like you said. So I get why it's not for you, because I feel like that's something that you've often rallied against, like, you know, puzzle, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the puzzle, like worker placement element that like a lot of modern Euros do. I feel that's like always also something where it's like, well, that just gets in the way of the game I want to play. And like, I totally get that. The game part of Ingenious to me exists perfectly in 2D Ingenious, and then the 3D element just adds this weird extra layer to that. And I think I would pretty much agree that like the purity of what I love about Ingenious does suffer for that in Ingenious 3D, but I also do kind of like the additional puzzle because I'm just that dork. So yeah, it works for me. I don't think it's an improvement though, certainly.
And I think this might work maybe better at 2, right? Which is like giving you something else to chew on, because like when we play Ingenious, there's even some mild diplomacy elements of like, no, don't pay attention to my green and purple because you know, we've obviously got a common enemy in Mark. And I just feel like there's, to your point, even if it's 10% more puzzle, it's just not what I'm willing to accept. But universal praise for this one. Mark, did you play this with us, or did we not get to it at Dice Tower West?
No, I did. And I encountered the same sort of situation that you're talking about, where there was that puzzling aspect of, oh, now that the second story is in play, where can I even place? And I need to sort of spend some time figuring out what's even a legal move. I wonder, I agree with your take in general. I wonder, why would I even care about high-level 3D Ingenious? But I wonder if once you get to high-level Ingenious and you can start seeing some like 3D blocking strategies, if that makes the game richer as a whole. I mean, again, this is like such a niche question that who really cares, but I'm just wondering if once you start getting a handle on the 3D element, does it become a more richer experience? That's not really what I want from Ingenious in general, but I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think the way in which you block in 3D is different, right? So maybe you're covering stuff up, but it's also blocking in a different way. I think there's just such, like, I don't know if punitive is the word I want, but there's just such, punitive, I looked it up, inflicting or intended as punishment. Like, you can be so punitively mean to people that it's just hilarious. And I think anytime you're doing that in 3D, it's probably a little more covert or it's not as clear that all we're doing is just blocking the ever-loving out of one color from one player. And it's so funny. I just find it so funny. But many people are kind of like mid on Ingenious in general, and I could see this working better for them. So I'm happy that it exists. I'm happy that it's calling attention to its big older brother, Einfach Genial, one of my favorite games of all time. But that was Einfach Genial 3D, the third dimension.
Okay, I'm going to be talking about Gazebo, which was kindly sent to us as a review copy by Bitewing Games. This is currently on Kickstarter at the time of release. Gazebo is a remake of another Reino Knizia game, in fact. Another Reino Knizia game called Qin, spelled Qin.
Oh, I've played that.
Oh, cool. Do you like it?
It's been a while. I remember liking it. I'm curious to hear about this, though, to see if I can remember the details.
I'd be curious to get your take, because I'm interested to know. I'm not like super familiar with exactly what's changed in this, except with a couple of details. But yeah, So the gist in Gazebo, at least, and I'll just describe it in that way, given I'm not sure of all the differences. But Gazebo is effectively like a domino type game where you have, again, not that dissimilar from Ingenious. You have a bunch of domino tiles that are split between 3 different colors. And the majority of those combinations are just one color of each. So you don't usually get doubles, like say a double red or a double green or a double blue. But there are a bunch of those special tiles that are all doubles. So you have like these lighter tiles that are single splits, and you have special darker tiles which are all doubles. So what you're going to do on your turn is place one of these dominoes, and if you ever create a group of 2 or more of the same color, so let's say you place on a previous turn a blue and you place another blue next to it on your turn, you've created a nook, a small nook of 2 spaces. You place one of your gazebos onto that nook, and you're one step closer to winning the game, because the only objective is to be the first person to place all of your gazebos out onto the board. And there's a bunch of different ways that you can expedite that. You can create a larger nook if you ever create a cluster of 5 spaces of the same color. There are also these patios that if you ever connect a nook up to, you get to place a gazebo onto that patio, as long as you're the person that has the most tiles under your control adjacent to that patio. So the patios kind of change control over and over again based on people sort of creating nooks around them. But you're also able to merge nooks together, kind of like a little bit like Acquire style, where like the bigger nook ends up winning and that person takes control of the whole nook, like sending the other people's gazebos back to their owner. So there's a lot of pretty aggressive fighting over space and fighting over nooks and trying to get people's gazebos back to their hand because they're getting close to winning and getting yours out on the board, and the sort of desperate push to get yourself closer to getting your last one out. The twist on this that I like quite a lot are these double tiles. So at the start of the game, you have a separate personal deck, let's call it, of these double tiles. And at any point in time, you can choose to draw one of those into your hand at the end of your turn. Because what happens is you play a domino, you draw a domino, either from the general supply or from your special, like, double hand. The problem being, of course, you have a limited supply of those. So when you draw them is like really, really crucial. We were just like calling them bombs in our game. And if you sort of go early on those bombs, you're just going to have a lot of that power in the beginning of the game, but you're not going to have any of it later in the game. Or do you start to draw them halfway through the game towards the end as the tables start to turn? The timing of when you use those bombs starts to be very, very crucial for like putting double spaces on the board, getting nooks out, stealing nooks from other players, stealing patios from other players. So a relatively simple game, but one that I thought was pretty interesting and dynamic in the way that we played it, at least. Kellen, what was your reaction to your game of Gazebo?
So I liked it a lot. I think the end game was less interesting than I expected it to be. I felt like we had wildly different strategies and early mid games, and then we sort of all ended up around the same place, which kind of bothered me. So I'm hoping, I don't know if that bears out or if you've played it more than that and had a different experience.
It's definitely not always been that close in the games I've played. That one definitely seemed to be the most edge casey of like, because the thing that happened in our game, for clarification, is like we were all within one gazebo of each other right at the end, and it actually literally became like a king-making situation of like, okay, who do I cause to win based on my tile placement, which is a little bit rough for sure.
Yeah, and I think I liked it. I was solidly in the don't love, could see myself owning it and enjoying it. And I also I don't like cloth boards. Like, there's just never a world where I prefer them. It just is always mildly obnoxious.
I think I sort of come down in the same place, more or less, which is to say that it's a class of abstract game that is not always my favorite. Ingenious, for like its similarities, is one I much prefer, for example. But it was pleasant. It was certainly pleasant. It was certainly lovely. And I don't even mean that to be like in a derisive way. I thought it was very clean, very fun to play. But again, not one that I felt like super compelled to have to return to multiple times. I do think the components are lovely. Like, cloth map aside, like the tiles, even in the prototype form that we had them, just feel like they have a nice heft to them in a way that just kind of felt like very tactile and pleasant. One thing that is neat about this new version, and Mark, I don't know if this is true of Chin, but there are multiple maps that come with this in the form of different cloth boards, so you can have slightly vary up your game in different ways. No. Mark, how do you remember Chin? How well do you remember Chin?
Yeah, I don't remember it super well. I know that my only play of it was 2 players, so that's going to obviously color it. Speaking of maps, I think this is played instead of on a cloth map. Chin is on a traditional board, and I remember there was like a front side and back side, so at least there is 2 maps on that. I know in Chin that you do not have these bomb tiles you're referring to. That is not a thing. You're just dealt tiles and you play and draw. I remember thinking it was fun and interesting. Didn't strike me at the time as like top tier Knizia, but also not bottom tier. It seemed like a pleasant, solid game that I wouldn't mind playing again. I don't know if there was any changes for Gazebo, but Chin at least was fairly quick to play. I remember it being like a 30, 45 minute sort of affair, and that made it also more interesting or more palatable for replaying potentially in the future.
Yeah, I think our 3-player game was about 45 minutes, and my 2-player games have been about half an hour, so that tracks.
Yeah.
I do think, and this was definitely a point of contention with Kellen, I believe, but correct me if I'm wrong, Kellen, but like, you preferred the idea of Chin where the bombs, quote unquote, are just like in the pool, because that is one of the bigger changes where like you have this limited armory of them.
I just thought that it looked like a change that was made by folks who were like, there's too much randomness in my 30-minute tile laying game, so I'm going to make a new rule that like pushes it out of a weight class that makes me care. I didn't dislike it for our group. I was just sort of thinking about like the core light group that you would play this with and feeling like it was unnecessary.
But yeah, that is Gazebo. I will say that from a production perspective, this is another one of their games that comes in like the travel case, similar to Trailblazers, which, you know, I don't think that's something I necessarily need, but it's a cute addition.
Some people love those, though.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know how different my pieces are going to be from the final ones, but again, the production and the components are lovely, including that case. So yeah, that is Gazebo from Bitewing Games. Mark, tell us about Stalk Exchange.
Yes, I got a chance to play Stalk Exchange, designed by Christopher Ryan Chan and published by, is it the OP? It's the OP, right? It's not the OP. Mm-hmm. The OP, yeah, the OP Games. I think Chan was the designer of the Night Cage. You reviewed that, didn't you, Neelan? The Night Cage?
I did. I did not like it all that much, if I remember serves. But...
Okay, so let's see. Let's see if this is over 2. Or is he batting 500? Let's see. Anyway, before you're bored by the idea of playing a game called Stalk Exchange, I should tell you that Stalk, in this case, is spelled STALK, and the market you're manipulating is a flower market. So don't fall asleep quite yet.
Oh, it's not about stalkers?
It is not about stalkers. It's about stalks, flower stalks.
Do you pronounce that
it's not about the birds that bring babies?
Oh,
not about those stalks either.
Wait, did you think it was about flowers or stalkers?
What?
Nealon.
You thought a
Not
game called Stalk
Me?
Exchange
I thought it was about
stalkers?
flowers.
Oh, I literally
Why
thought it
would
was
you
about
think it was
people
about
who stalk.
story?
Because of the,
So wait,
that's the
wait,
word
no,
he
no.
said.
Hold on. We got to stop. Hard stop here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
describe the game Stalk Exchange about stalkers to me now. In your mind, what you're envisioning. Stalk Exchange about stalkers.
Stalker Exchange? Stalk?
Yeah, the game that when you heard that I was doing Stalk Exchange.
Yeah, I
you
mean,
thought
I
it was
didn't
about
think
stalkers.
it was a very good idea for a theme, but I did think
All right. Well, this is Stalk Exchange, Stalk, about flowers. I mentioned this not only because I think it makes the game more palatable for most people, maybe Kellen aside, but also because it made me more interested in acquiring it and playing it because I thought it might promise the idea of playing an economic game that I might more easily get to the table given its more approachable coat of paint. And researching more about the game, I found out that not only is it approachable via this theming, but also it's fairly light, straightforward, rules-light game as well. So in Stalk Exchange, you are attempting to manipulate those flower markets. And the way that it works is you're going to start the game with 12 discs hidden behind your screen that represent some randomly drawn combination of the 5, I think, types of flowers in the game. So these discs are the stocks you have in the different stocks. The STOCKS stocks you have in the different STALK stocks. So you're going to have a bunch of 12 flowers behind that you randomly draw. Those are your stocks. On your turn, you're going to have the choice of 1 or 2 actions, so pretty simple in terms of your choices. You can either swap one of the stocks that you have hidden behind your screen. Again, these are stocks that you're invested in. You can swap one of those with one of the stocks that are in this shared display. The other thing you can do is actually take steps to manipulate the value of the flowers. The way you do that is also pretty simple. You're going to take one of those stocks from the aforementioned shared display that is in front of everybody, and you're going to plant that stock, that flower, in a shared garden map. Once you take 2 of these actions, again, the 2 actions are going to be either manipulate the stocks you have behind your screen or take one of the stocks from the shared display and try to manipulate the values. Once you've done 2 of those things, you're going to evaluate if any of the stocks, if any of the flowers have grown in value. The way you do that is if any cluster, be it a single flower or multiple flowers of the same color, are completely surrounded on the garden map, you're going to pull them off this garden map and they're going to rise in value based on the number of discs you take off. So if there are 3 white flowers on the garden and they at some point become completely surrounded by other flowers, you're going to pull off those 3 white flowers and the value of white is going to go up by 3. This does lead to some interesting situations we had in one of the games I played. We had a situation where a player seemed to be interested in getting the red flowers to have a huge cluster, and he was trying to set it up so that he was going to pull off that entire cluster all at once. But when you have a cluster that big, it became clear that it was never going to be completely surrounded, and it went from being a situation where we were nervous about the red flowers being pulled up in this large cluster and scoring big to realizing they were never going to be completely surrounded. And in fact, that large cluster was never harvested. I think at the end, red was valued at like 0 or 1 in the game we had. So sort of interesting in that way. You're trying to build up these clusters, but if you build too big, it becomes clear that it's untenable. There's a Knizia-esque, speaking of Knizia, twist in this game where once the game is over, the flower with the highest value is going to bust. So whatever flower ends up being the highest in the game busts, and then its value is halved. So you're going to also, as you're playing, keep an eye on the flower that is the most valuable towards the end of the game, because you want to sort of stay away from it if you can, because the value again is going to take a hit. I really appreciated the fact that this is an economic game, which is the type of game that I generally like, but one that could be taught quite easily. I think the rules explanation took, 15, 20 minutes, and it also plays pretty quickly. And again, due to the theme and the vibrant colors that you might expect from a flower game and the production, which is also quite beautiful, it is fairly easy to convince other folks, hey, this is pretty easy to teach and look how beautiful it looks, and it sort of gets people interested in playing what is otherwise an economic game. Speaking of the production, I would say that the lavishness of the production is, in fact, one of the gripes I have about the game. It's a little overly lavish, I would say. Again, I know that is there to attract people to play it, as I've mentioned, but for a game that is this light and simple, this is a box that is double, speaking of 3D, double size in terms of thickness, so it's quite a large box for a game that is fairly breezy and simple to play. So it's a double-edged sword. You have the approachability and the table presence that draws people in, but there's a lot of physical game there. The other, and unfortunately more fundamental problem I have with the game is I think it's just a little too easy to pivot in this game. In all the games I've played of this, there's some amount of jockeying by the players to get their flowers to grow in value, as I sort of mentioned with that red flower store earlier. But what sort of happens toward the end of the game is once the values of the flowers become clear, once people start jockeying, they're trying to get their flowers to go up. But once it gets towards the end of the game, what ends up happening in all the games I've played so far is people then transition from taking turns to manipulate the value of the flowers to now their turns are purely dumping the bad flowers from behind their screens and taking the high value flowers and sort of like reinvesting in the flowers that are clearly going to be the ones that are going to score high toward the end of the game. There also seems to be an issue in especially higher player count games where the players who are taking their turns toward the end of the game will have a larger amount of power because they're going to be able to manipulate the flower's value at the very end when other players may not have a chance to do anything about it. So it seems like that's a little bit of an issue with the later players having a little more power than perhaps they should. This ability to pivot easily does make for some close scores, as you mentioned with Gazebo, sort of the same thing here. All the games I've played have been really, really tight, but again, that didn't seem to be due to comparable levels of skill in play as much as it did with how the game was designed. It feels like you can do, again, a bunch of stuff at the beginning that's not going to really matter too much, and then at the end, there's just a scramble to get situated right and try to swing things, especially like try to swing the timing so that you are one of the end players and have like the last little push at the end. It's not a terrible game, I would say, definitely. And again, absolutely looks lovely. Table presence is fantastic. It just feels like there's a bunch of these light economic games dressed up in fun themes out there that feel like they have more consistently throughout the game consequential decisions. Even shorter or lighter games I can think of that are economic strike me as having more throughout the game consequential decisions, whereas this one, your decisions are really backloaded, and at the beginning you sort of feel like what you're doing doesn't really matter too much. So unfortunately not a game that I can really recommend. Again, also given the size of the box is sort of a strike against it when you take it in totality. So that was Stalk Exchange, designed by Christopher Ryan Chan, published by the Op. If you're interested, despite what I've said, I think there's an implementation on BGA that you can try out. Although I myself haven't played it, so I can't really speak to that implementation, but I think it's out there. So that's Stalk Exchange.
Okay, before we move on, I would like to remind everyone that might not be aware of the existence of our lovely Patreon. We are always very grateful to all of the kind people that support us. Patreon.com/BoardGameBarrage or BoardGameBarrage.com/Patreon. And one of the main things that you can get if you are not tired of listening to us every 2 weeks is a bonus episode that shows up on the off weeks. This is where we're just going to be talking about our other goings-on in our life, like the stuff we've been watching, the stuff we've been playing, some moral quandaries that we debate, most bonus episodes at least. Lots of fun stuff going on over there. There are also bonuses for Discord members, which as a reminder is at BoardGameBarrage.com/Discord, including private, secret Discord channels. So yeah, if any of that sounds good to you, you can find a tier that suits you at BoardGameBarrage.com/Patreon, and we would hugely appreciate your support. Let's get on with the Golden Geek Awards, the 19th Golden Geek Awards. The nominees have just gone up as of a couple of days ago. No, that's not true. Three, yes, at least three. There are at least 3 award categories here, and we can go through all of them, all 3+ of them. The first
here's
one,
something. If you're interested in voting on this, obviously go to BGG and vote, but you have until May 3 + 1 to vote.
Until the very end of May 3.
Yes, the very end. In some time zones, I believe the end of May 3rd will be too late.
3 letters in May, Mark.
3 letters in May, that's right. So you got a 3-3 there.
Yeah, wow. Okay, first category of nominees.
Thanks for backing me on that.
You're welcome. First category of nominees here is 2-player games.
Wait, excuse me, how many players? How many players?
2 players, unfortunately. 3 minus 1 player.
There you go, perfect.
3-1 player games. And those nominees are, let's get through a lot of games to talk. So let's rattle this off real quick. Agent Avenue, Compile, Main 1, Dune, War for Arrakis, Flatiron, A Guest of Robin Hood, Ironwood, Kelp, Shark versus Octopus, King of Tokyo, Duel, sorry.
Commit.
The Lord of the Rings, Duel for Middle Earth, and Star Wars, Unlimited. Lots of colons there.
I colons there.
That's pretty common in 3-1 games.
I like this category a lot because there are a lot of really great games on this. I don't know if it's just because I've been playing a lot more 2-player games recently, but yeah, lots of great stuff. My personal pick, if you don't mind me jumping out right at the bat, is Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle Earth, which I really, really adore. That is like absolutely one of my highlight games from last year. This is the spin-off of Seven Wonders Duel, which I find much, much better than that game. A game that I like quite a bit.
That game? Seven
Wonders Duel, yeah.
Oh, Seven Wonders Duel.
Yeah.
The spin-off of a spin-off.
It's a spin-off of a spin-off, exactly. Anything jump out here for the rest of you?
So, in general, I don't really like 2-player games, so I haven't played
3-1
many of these. 3-1 games. I did play, is it a Guest of Robin Hood or a Gest of Robin? I don't know.
Gosh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I said Guest, so we can go with that if you want to not show me up, I guess.
Yeah, sure. So, a Guest, although I'm now thinking that Nealon is wrong, but it is a Gest. But I played that. This is like a card-driven sort of asymmetrical wargaming sort of thing taking place in the Robin Hood world, where one person's playing the Sheriff of Nottingham, another person's playing Robin Hood. I didn't love it. I was excited to play it because I like the idea of like a war game dressed up as something else. But there's a little bit too much like rules on the cards thing, like where you have to sort of know the deck. It's sort of like in the Twilight Struggle sort of idea where...
All right.
You play the first couple times and it's fun, it's fine, and this was fun too, but I don't think you really can like get into the depths of the game without both players really knowing the deck or what can happen in the game, and so I just generally don't really love those type of games, I think. So yeah, I'm happy to hear that you loved Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle Earth because I burnt out on Seven Wonders Duel. And to hear that you like Seven Wonders Duel, but you really like this a lot more, makes me interested in giving it a shot.
Look, I think if you dislike Seven Wonders Duel, this probably isn't going to change your mind. And I will also, I have to say that as much as I won't care to admit it, like the theme does a lot of lifting here. Like it's a good representation of Lord of the Rings, as good as you can get in like a much more abstract game. Like it captures the theme nicely. It tightens so much about Seven Wonders Duel into like just focusing you on like these 3 win conditions. Yeah, it's good stuff. The other one I want to call out here in particular, I would say, is Ironwood, is another one that I really, really liked from last year.
Neil and I played Ironwood and liked it a lot. That had the mixed media components because if you're the forest person, you play with wood. And if you hate forest, you play with metal, Mark.
I see. I think I remember you guys talking about this on a previous episode.
Yeah. It was good.
Is Compile the game that the folks at Shut Up and Sit Down touted?
I don't know about that, but it's like a 2-player...
Yes. I do know about that.
It is a 2-player air, land, and sea adjacent game with like maybe air, land, and sea with more twists, I would say. Kellen and I played this at Dice Tower West, and I liked it a fair bit. I've only played it the once, so I can't speak to it all that much.
But the publisher has passed away.
Oh.
Killed by tariffs.
Oh, this is a Greater Than Games game, right?
Yeah.
Is that their name? Yeah. Yeah, bummer.
I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't. May joke is a joke. It's sad state of affairs in board gaming right now, folks. But normally that's when actors get their big awards is what is that word? Posthumous?
Post-mortem? Oh, posthumously, yeah.
Yes, posthumously. So, could be Compile's year. Sorry, are we picking the... not a joke. Tariffs suck. But a joke within the joke. It's meta. Are we picking who we want to win, or are we picking who we think shall win?
Oh, we could do both. Who do we think is going to win? I think Lord of the Rings is in for a good shot, personally.
Yeah, that's the one I would pick.
Star Wars Unlimited, I know is... Yeah. Star Wars Unlimited, I know, is very popular as well, ?
Yes, very popular. Also, Kelp had like quite a big like online buzz going for it. But I would think Lord of the Rings is going to win. If I had to give it to games I've played, I would probably pick Ironwood over Compile. But I also was pretty high on trying Agent Avenue. But like Agent Avenue also goes to 4 players, so I'm not sure on that.
Oh, that seems like a cheat.
I almost bought it like a couple weeks ago.
You mean 3+1 players?
Oh yeah, sorry, I misspoke there.
I don't really have an opinion about what I think I'd want to win because I've only played a couple of these, and again, I don't play very many two-player games. So
Okay, let's move on to artwork and presentation. We have Arcs, the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game, Fromage, Harmonies, Kelp, Shark vs. Octopus, Let's Go! To Japan, Lord of the Rings, Duel for Middle-earth, SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, Unconscious Mind, Wondrous Creatures, and Wormspan.
Different Lord of the Rings game?
Yes, 2 different Lord of the Rings games. I've only seen the box for a Fellowship trick-taking game. That's the crew-like, but the pictures I've seen of the cards look lovely, but I can't speak to more than that. I do think that Arcs, presentation-wise, is quite good. Even as someone that doesn't love Kyle Farron art, I think that the way it all comes together in Arcs is quite appealing.
I mean, I think Arcs is going to win every category that it's nominated.
Yeah, I mean, that's
right? Like,
probably
so?
true.
okay,
I mean, I haven't read the whole list because I don't prep for these things.
I guess Wormspan maybe throws that off a little bit.
That's true.
The Stonemeyer contingent.
But this isn't even... There's already a new Span universe. This is the Dragon one, right?
Totally, yeah this is the Dragon one.
I don't know. We can't possibly think Wormspan has the best art.
Look, I think it's pretty hard. I know that this is not what you're saying, but it's hard to bet against Stonemeyer, and also because their presentations are really lovely, to be honest. I'm certainly not going to fault them on that regard, but yeah, does it deserve over any other stuff in this list? I don't think so.
I actually usually don't like how they have text mocked up. I know that, like, that's just... Some of it is total personal preference, but specifically in Wingspan and in Scythe, I feel like that's the letdown on their presentation. It's like the font they use. I don't know.
I thought the presentation art for Let's Go to Japan was pretty good, very very inviting. Of the art work, I do like the Unconscious Mind art.
I haven't seen that much of this. Oh yeah, this is lovely.
Yeah, is it Vincent Dutray? Yeah, I think Vincent
Dutray by the look of it. Yeah,
yeah, it has like a dreamy, dark in a way that appeals to me, sort of like Brass, the artwork for Brass, where it's... I generally don't like games that are very dark. This isn't overly dark, but it has a luscious quality to it that I enjoyed.
Let's move on to cooperative game. We have the Seventh Citadel, Agemonia, Bumbusters, Dead Cells, the roguelite board game, Fateforge, Chronicles of Khaine, the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game, The Gang, Leviathan Wilds, Primal the Awakening, Slay the Spire the board game, Tidal Blades 2, and Wilmot's Warehouse. I will say, as we were going down that list, I kept thinking, oh, that's the one. There's a lot of good stuff
yeah, there's
in
some
that
good
list.
ones. Definitely.
It's probably going to be Slay the Spire, though, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Does it deserve it? I mean, like, Bombusters is pretty great.
Yeah.
The Gang is super great.
Wilmot's.
Trick-taking Fellowship. Yeah, Wilmot's... I guess it's a co-op game. It's funny. It doesn't like strike me. It just strikes me as like a weird activity.
Yeah,
I really like it. And again, it's cooperative, so I'm obviously wrong. Seventh Citadel, didn't that come out like 20 years ago?
Yeah.
I didn't think of that as a recent game. Maybe it's one of the ones that just fulfilled last year. That could be it as well.
Yeah.
I know that there's a lot of love for the Leviathan Wilds as well.
Yeah, I think Slay the Spire, though, is sort of sitting on a different level of hype.
Yeah, but for sure. And also, like, I'm intrigued. I have the Dead Cells game and I have not played it yet, but it seemed cool.
There's a version of that on BGA, and I tried to get into it, and it was just, there's a lot to it, so I sort of bailed,
Okay.
but yeah.
Expansion, Arcs, The Blighted Reach, Expeditions, Gears of Corruption, Forest Shuffle, Alpine, Forest Shuffle, Woodland Edge, Gaia Project, The Lost Fleet, Heat, Heavy Rain, Obsession, Characters Expansion, Sky Team, Turbulence, Terraforming Mars, Prelude 2, and The White Castle, Matcha.
There's a Prelude 2. Every single one of these has a colon in it. Okay, what does that tell you about the sad state of affairs in board gaming?
I guess they are expansions. That's a bit more for
No, sad state of affairs, Neelan. Sad state of affairs.
I did not realize there's a Prelude 2 to Terraforming Mars.
Yeah, that's wild.
What is a prelude, our Mensa bros? It's not like...
Just what comes before, so this is the second thing that comes before.
Yeah,
Yeah, right. It comes before the game, but after the first Prelude.
Yeah, exactly.
Because wasn't Terraforming Mars Prelude there to like quicken the start of the game? So like, is this like a quickens it even more, or is it like a different way to quicken it? I don't know.
Prelude again.
Yeah, like preluding the first time so much, we did it twice.
I think as much as Arcs is probably going to steal a lot of the categories, this is the category that Arcs is like a shoe-in for, because people love that campaign. Like that campaign is the reason that people are as effusive about Arcs as they are. So it
makes sense.
Seems like the right pick to me.
Yeah.
It's also, I mean, I hate to say this because I don't know too much about the other expansions, but I would guess that it's easily the most audacious expansion on this entire list by like a mile.
No, that would be Alpine Force Shuffle.
Okay, good. Right.
Yeah. Or Heavy Rain. Now we've added Rain. You were racing, but now you're racing in rain. Okay. That's audacious.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, you hadn't considered. Okay, you could re-record that, though. If you're feeling sheepish.
Innovative game. Arcs. Bombbusters. City of Six Moons. Fishing, Fromage, The Gang, Let's Go to Japan, Monkey Palace, SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and Wilmot's Warehouse.
The idea that Let's Go to Japan is nominated for this category almost makes me want to rage quit the episode. Like, come on, guys.
I get it. I'm with you. I'm trying to look up the games that I'm not familiar with at all. Like, I've never heard of City of Six Moons and Monkey Palace.
So Monkey Palace I have played.
Oh, okay.
Monkey Palace is the Lego game. It's definitely like a family weight 3D construction game, kind of similar to like Gardens of Babylon or Babylonia, the one that came out recently. But it's that style of game where building up and evaluating that in 3D is kind of like the puzzle to it. It's much better than it has any right to be. I'll say that for like a official Lego game. But yeah, innovative, I don't know if that's the right pick. I know that people have I know Mike DeLisio in particular had a lot of high praise about Fishing. I've not played that yet. Have either of you played that?
No.
I've not.
But it is like a trick-taking game with like a weird arc to it, so you can at least like see it, why it's on this list. But I don't know. Wilmot's Warehouse, even Bombbusters, like it's just like a campaign co-op game. Like it's like maybe if there wasn't, all those other ones that have existed.
Yeah. A lot of the stuff feels more evolutionary to me. I mean, because The Gang, you can kind of see the DNA from other things.
This City of Six Moons seems wild. I've never heard of this. This is a Hollandspiel game. I'm just going to read the description real quick. City of Six Moons is an alien civilization game in both senses. A solitaire game in which players guide the destiny of an alien civilization, and a game from an alien civilization. So listen to this. Inside the box, you will find the components needed to play the game and a rulebook written entirely in symbols and icons. You will need to decipher the game's rules yourself. You will never know whether you've gotten it right or not.
I remember hearing about this.
No mechanisms are listed on this page. The designer will never answer any rules questions. That seems very interesting.
That.
Yeah.
Do you remember what was like the game we played?
Oh yes, the one where you're deciphering like ancient board games based on yeah. Unbox, right?
Unbox, that's right.
Yes. This I honestly doubt this is going to be a good game, but I love the audacity of that design. That's really interesting.
I'm so intrigued by this. I think the thing that scares me off of a little bit by it is like how obtuse is it going to be? Like, am I going to hit a point very quickly where I'm just like, well, this game? But
sure.
That's very neat. I might look into that
very
more.
Neat. Yeah, I definitely will.
Okay, next up, light game of the year, Bombbusters, Captain Flip, Castle Combo, Cities, Fishing, Flip 7, The Gang, Mlem Space Agency, Rebirth, and River Valley Glassworks.
Okay, interesting that Bombbusters is even in this category, IMO, compared to some of these other ones. Flip 7 is the one that I feel like I wish we had played. Have any of you guys played this yet?
I have played
I've played one round of it, so not enough to like really say one way or the other.
And what do you have to say about it after playing one round that you're not willing to say?
Well, no, I mean, I didn't think it was amazing after that one game of it, but like it seems like the sort of game that you're intended to play like a bunch of rounds back to back to back. Like, it's light card game territory, right? So like,
I played a full game of it, and it felt like very much like Push. Remember the game Push that we played way back when?
Push was great.
It's a lot like that. It's a lot. Yeah, I thought it was very, very solid for sure.
Okay, that's awesome.
So it's got to be The Gang or Mlem here. Probably The Gang.
I do like Rebirth a whole lot, but I think not as much as the other two. If I was picking personally here, I might pick Mlem, but in terms of what I think is going to win, probably The Gang.
I mean, I would pick The Gang based on what I've played, but Are there that many people who are like into a poker shared deduction sort of game? I mean, I would pick it, but I feel like the audience can't be that large, but maybe it is. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. I just see it as more likely than, I don't know, both the Mlem and the Gang were very popular very quickly when they came out. So,
yeah,
who could say?
Okay, let's move on to medium game of the year. Endeavor, Deep Sea, The Fellowship of the Ring, Trick-Taking Game, Fromage, Harmonies, Let's Go to Japan, The Lord of the Rings, Duel for Middle-earth, River of Gold, Slay the Spire, Windmill Valley, and Wormspan. I'm instantly kind of shocked that some of these are considered medium games, but I guess it's just strictly
But then you
by
remembered
rate.
Let's Go to Japan.
Yeah, then I remember Let's Go to Japan. I was like, okay, I get it now. I want to call out Endeavor Deep Sea because I don't think I had a chance to talk about this on my top 50 because I don't think it quite made my top 50, but I really, really loved Endeavor Deep Sea. It's one of my favorite games from last year. Yeah, I'm not very familiar with Endeavor at all, so I don't know how it compares, but I thought that this is really, really solid. Is it the best game on this list? I'm not sure.
Interesting. I've been curious about that. So that makes me want to pick it up. Yeah,
you played Endeavor though, right?
I have played Endeavor. I remember liking it. It's been years and years and years. I liked it enough to hang on to it and haven't really looked to trade it or anything. But also have not been itching to necessarily get back to it. But I remember thinking that it was designed pretty well and being curious about Deep Sea. So I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed it. I've played Fromage. I know Fromage has a lot of positive buzz out there. I just thought it was okay. It is. I know it was also nominated in the innovative category, and I can sort of see why there's like a spatial aspect to it that I think is sort of interesting. But I didn't necessarily love it. Harmonies also didn't necessarily super love. I also played River of Gold, which I thought was fun, but again, didn't knock my socks off. I feel like Slay the Spire is the one that is probably going to win this. I think there's a lot of like passionate fans for it.
Yeah. I have River of Gold, and I've always wanted to play it just because of the production is so great. Harmonies being in medium and Bomb Busters being in light, is that real? Is this real life?
That's what's interesting to me. I mean, I would say the interesting thing about both of those games is I think that, like, you know, Bomb Busters has like some deductive elements that I feel like make it on the cusp of light, and similarly Harmonies actually has like pretty brain burny elements to it that also maybe puts it on the cusp. So like I would flip those personally, but I also get that they're probably just riding the line of either category. But yeah, I think that's always feels pretty arbitrary. I've also heard good things about Windmill Valley. Haven't played that yet. Okay, heavy game of the year, Andromeda's Edge. And if I may, I could say if I believe in one thing this episode, it's that Andromeda's Edge should not win this category. But Andromeda's Edge,
you're really putting your flag.
I really don't get that game at all. But anyway, Andromeda's Edge, Arcs, Black Forest, Civolution, Ezra and Nehemiah, Inventions, Evolution of Ideas, Inventors of the South Tigris, Men Nefer, SETI's Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and Unconscious Mind.
There's a bunch of games on this list that I wanted to play. I'm very interested in playing Black Forest, and playing SETI, and in playing Unconscious Mind. That said, I mean, it sounds like, based on what you guys said and the general vibe, Arcs is the clear favorite here. I don't think there's anything really on this. SETI, I think, has been getting some buzz recently, but Arcs is probably the one that folks are most in for. Civolution, I guess.
Yeah, it's got to be Arcs.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Arcs. Civolution is one that I'm so intrigued by, and I need to play again. That first game I played of it was so weird and interesting and different, but like my first thought wasn't necessarily, wow, this is great. So I want to go back to that, but it's such a big, daunting game. There's a lot here on that I'm not familiar with at all. Ezra and Nehemiah, Men Nefer. Curious to check those out as well.
Yeah, I've never heard of Men Nefer.
Okay, party game. Best party game. Caution Signs, Courtesans, Flip 7, The Gang, Gestrudis, Hister Bingo, Landmarks, Link City, Things in Rings, and Wilmot's Warehouse.
Courtesans as a party game is sort of interesting. I don't know. It wouldn't strike me as a party game necessarily. I really liked Flip 7. I love The Gang. I like Things in Rings, and obviously loved Wilmot's Warehouse. So 4 pretty strong games there. I would go, if it was me, I'd go Wilmot's Warehouse. I guess we're thinking The Gang is going to be the favorite here. Have you guys played Caution Signs or Gestrudis or Hister Bingo or Landmarks or Link City?
No, but I did just look at Hitster Bingo, and the description says, get ready to spin the disco ball and dance to the beats in Hitster Bingo. So that's the winner in my book.
Sure.
I actually think that Things in Rings should win. That's where I'm at. I don't know why, even though I like Wilmot's Warehouse, it's not a party game. There we are.
I mean, look,
it's not a co-op game. It's not anything to me.
It's barely, yeah. It's Wilmot's Warehouse with a bullet for me. Like, I think it's by far... I love Things in Rings, don't get me wrong, and I like the gang a whole lot as well, but I think Wilmot's Warehouse was something special. But yeah, I do agree that it kind of defies categorization a little bit.
Yeah, it's fine. I just, for whatever reason, think Things in Rings will win. That's where I'm at.
Okay, best print and play game. 52 Realms Adventures, The Cubes of Europe, Dangerous Space, Forage, Grim World, Night, Koala Rescue Club, and Rome, Fate of an Empire. And I will say right off the bat, I apologize, I don't know anything about any of these games, but congrats to the nominees.
Yep.
Moving on. Solo game. The best solo game. 7th Citadel, Civolution, Conservus, Forage, a 9-card solitaire game, Gloomhaven, Buttons and Bugs, I, Napoleon, Imperium Horizons, Kingdom Legacy, Rome, Fate of an Empire, and Slay the Spire.
I am very interested in I, Napoleon. I've been trying to track down a copy, so that's one that I've got my eye on. I've also heard good things about Rome, Fate of an Empire, but have not played that either. You played the Gloomhaven Buttons and Bugs game, right, Neelan? You didn't.
Yeah, I played it a little bit. I feel bad. I've not actually covered it on the episode yet, partly because I keep telling myself to go back to it, but also partly because I didn't really love it on first impression. It didn't strike me as enough of what I love about, even though it is largely Gloomhaven distilled to a solo game. Like, something about it just wasn't grabbing me. It does deserve to be going back to, in my opinion, but I just found it hard to drum up the enthusiasm for it.
Was that the re-implementation of that Gloomhaven game? Like that?
That's exactly right.
Okay,
yeah, this was a former print and play or former 9-card game. I forget the distinction of which one is which, but that they later adapted into a fully fledged project. One thing I would have to say about Buds and Bugs, it is one of the most adorable productions ever. It's just this tiny little scaled down Gloomhaven brick box, full gloss, just shrunk down to a 100th of the size. Very cool.
But we're thinking Slay the Spire is the one here, right?
Yeah, Kellen, what was your thoughts on Slay the Spire solo?
Yeah, I definitely did that on an app over and over again with an app.
App assisted?
Yeah, app assisted. Yeah, exactly. Because, listen, you can like solo games, but they just shouldn't be on BGG. How's that for a hot take?
These are you're full of them today. Okay, thematic game. Best thematic game. 7th Citadel, Arcs, Dune, War for Arrakis, Endeavor, Deep Sea, The Fellowship of the Ring, trick-taking game, Let's Go to Japan, Lord of the Rings, Duel for Middle-earth, Rock Hard 1977, SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and Unconscious Mind.
Arcs for the win. Call it.
Yep.
Thematic game is a dumb category. Okay.
Well, here's actually where this gets a little bit weird.
Actually,
is Arcs without the expansion that thematic?
No, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Does Arcs even qualify as a thematic game? No, but it doesn't matter.
I would say definitely with the expansion it does.
What is a thematic game, Neil?
This
one
is just
another
telling
way
a
to write
story.
Ameritrash. No, I think this is just their way of writing Ameritrash without writing Ameritrash.
Let me ask you a question. Would you guys like this more if the category was called Best Themed Game or Best Theme in a Game?
Maybe. I guess I'm bringing my own thing to this, which is games that tell stories. But yeah, that doesn't really fit the description of most of these, actually. So maybe that's not right either.
Except for Rock Hard that night in 1977.
Exactly. Which, that story. Oof. Okay, best war game. Arcs, Burning Banners, Dune.
Arcs gotta be.
War for Arrakis, I guess.
Lock it in.
Robin Hood. I, Napoleon, Rebel Fury, Red Dust Rebellion, Tanto Manta, Undaunted 2200 Callisto, and Vijayanagara, the Deccan Empires of Medieval India.
You did it better than I expected.
So yeah,
Undaunted 2200 Callisto would be my vote for this one. I know I've raved about how much I think Undaunted does such a great job of distilling war games. That continues to be my take, and I really quite liked Callisto as the sci-fi entry into the franchise.
I have Red Dust Rebellion and Vijayanagara and have not played either of them. And as I said, I'm also interested in playing I, Napoleon. The only one I think on this list that I've played is a Gest or a Gest of Robin Hood, and was, again, as I said earlier, wasn't a huge fan. So I will just guess that Arcs is going to be winning this, as we've said about any Arc situation.
Best podcast, Beyond Solitaire. Best podcast brought to you by Board Game Barrage. Beyond
Former
Solitaire.
winners. Brought to you by
former
former champions in this category, Board Game Barrage.
Beyond Solitaire, Blue Peg, Pink Peg, Board Game BBQ, Board Game Hot Takes, Decision Space, 5 Games for Doomsday, Game Brain, Space Biff, Spacecast, Sporadically Bored with Mike and Dan, and Talk Cardboard. I will say, if there's a second thing I will say on this episode, is that Sporadically Bored with Mike and Dan should not win.
It's not even a board game podcast.
That's right. I think they've admitted that themselves. Have you guys listened to the Space Biff Spacecast? I've not heard that.
I have not, and I quite like Space Biff's reviews, so I owe it to him to check that out at some point, but I have not. I'm not a big board game podcast listener, I must admit.
Yeah, I will also say that
except our own, Kellen, of course.
Yeah, okay.
Got to pump up the numbers. I will say that I don't want to put my thumb on the scale for this, considering the clout we have, but I did watch along to Liverpool win the title this weekend while talking to Ben from 5 Games for Doomsday, so I've got to give him a little bit of... I'm not going to put my thumb on the scale for Ben, but I'll put my pinky on there.
Okay, best board game app. Clank, Codenames, Dune Imperium, Mountain Goats, Mythic Mischief, Point Salad, Pokemon Trading Game, Trading Card Game Pocket, Quilts and Cats of Calico, Stone Age Digital, and Summoner Wars Online.
A clear winner.
Wait, where's Slay the Spire?
Oh yeah, that's true. Just that.
Look, I don't think this is the time and place to discuss the ethics of Pokemon Trading Card Pocket.
The ethics? You get 2 free packs a day, bro. Free. Free. You don't have
they
to
are grifting children the world.
Oh my
over.
God, Neelan. How dare you say that about Nintendo?
I will say, I do have to say, I know that I've said this so many times before, maybe mostly on bonus episodes, but the Codenames app is phenomenal.
Oh, which one?
Phenomenal.
Not the first one. Oh, the 2024 Codenames app?
Was there a previous one?
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
They've made multiple apps.
Never mind that then. This one,
disqualified.
The second version, I suppose.
Oh my God. I vote Mountain Goats.
I just checked out the Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket BGG page, and there are 35 pages of character images, so that's something for Kellen to check out later.
Oh my God. We could just go through
the privacy of your own home.
Abra, Aerodactyl, Alakazam, Arbok, Arcanine,
Neil and Endis.
Thank you, everybody,
Beedrill.
for listening to this week's episode of the Board Game
Bohemian.
Barrage
What is that?
podcast.
Bellsprout. Bisharp,
Thank you, as always, to Heart Society for our intro and outro episode. What's on your mind, kid? Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Expeditioner, Bulbasaur,
Three,
Butterfree, Caterpie,
Three.
Elegy,
Triple cross.
Chansey. There are 3 Charizard, Charmeleon, Same Chatot, Chuti, Chinchio, Clefable, Clefairy,
And
Bulbabus, Cloyster, Cottontea, Cramorant,
good episode, everyone.
Cuba,
Good one.
Dude.
Yes. Okay, I'll talk to you guys later. Goodbye. See you later.
Yep, cool. I'll talk to you I'll send you the episode.
Dragonair,
I'll get it edited. I'll put it up.
Genie, Dreadnought, Drowsy, Dredragorn, Dubrule, Douglet, Dugtrio, Electric, Electros, Eevee.
Okay, really signing off now. Goodbye.
Page 9.
Things to do. I have meals to eat. I have a dog to take care of.
Elgium.
Goodbye.
I can't hear you.
What?
Execute. Executor.
What's that? You need me
Farfetch.
immediately in the living room?
Here.
I'll be right there.
Yeah, there's no one there. Flamme.
How dare you?
Flareon.
How dare you?
Froakie, Frogadier, Frostmoth.
You're on
Gallop.
F's? Oh my God.
I'm on G, Gardevoir, Ghastly, Gengar, G. Okay, I can't do this. Giovanni. He's the bad guy,
Giovanni?
Mark.
How about G for
Giovanni.
He's the
goodbye?
bad guy. All right, good night.
Bye-bye.